list at the think tank Open Europe. Vincenzo, so let's start out with Greece and then we'll come to Europe's growth figures in a moment's time. When it comes to Greece, we've finally seen that vote pass just a couple of hours ago. But then again, we may have a motion of no confidence which could scupper the government and we'll have new elections in October or something like that. Is that right?
Yeah, the situation is very complicated now because, as we have seen, Tsipras has managed to push the bailout deal through parliament, but he managed to do so only thanks to support from opposition parties, and it means that he's facing a significant, huge rebellion within his own party. He will probably call this confidence vote. I mean, if we look at the tally of votes this morning, he looks bound to lose the vote, although it's more complicated than that because some rebel MPs from his party have said that they do not support the bailout, but they do support the government. I mean, it's a bit tricky, but you know, they may support the government in a confidence vote. But I think, irrespective of how the confidence vote goes, we are, you know, the prospect of early elections is looking increasingly likely in Greece.
And how do you think those early elections will go?
If we look at opinion polls, I mean, I think if we are going to early elections in Greece, I think it's possibly in Tsipras' interest to go to snap elections as early as possible,
right.
That is before the austerity and the bailout measures start to bite, so he can still rely on widespread popularity at the moment. So I think if we are going to early elections, it's not unlikely that we see another Syriza victory, maybe not as large as we have seen in January, but you know, Syriza is still leading in opinion polls, so at the moment this is the scenario, I think.
And the economic figures will certainly help him. So if we take a look at these Eurozone economic figures, Greece's one came out yesterday, 0.8% higher. Why is Greece growing faster than anybody else?
Exactly. Greece and Spain, champions of Eurozone growth in this quarter. It's hard to make a thorough assessment because these are only preliminary estimates, so we don't quite have a breakdown of what drove GDP. I mean, we can make hypotheses, and as regards Greece, I think the main factors could have been, first of all, the tourist season. And secondly, a boost in consumption because perhaps Greek people were feeling that the worst was about to come and they wanted to buy tangible assets in order not to see their savings devalued in the prospect of, in the event of a Greek euro exit. So that boost in consumption and tourism may be two of the factors, because otherwise, I mean, there haven't been dramatic changes in trade accounts and deflation. I mean, Greece has been in a deflation for a while, so I don't think those are the main factors behind it.
It could be a little bit of a blip, but if we look at the figures for France and Germany, that's the real sort of bastion of growth. It's the real axis of growth, or supposed to be, for the Eurozone. France particularly weak, Germany only 0.4%, and the Eurozone as a whole 0.3%. It's hardly great, is it? It's pretty lackluster.
Exactly. That shows once again how fragile the whole Eurozone recovery is. And I think it also shows that probably forecasts have overrated the impact of quantitative easing and the impact of low oil prices. I mean, Germany has done slightly better because when you have a weaker euro, given that Germany relies so heavily on exports, of course, relatively, it does relatively better compared to other countries such as France, for example. Yeah. But in general, the lackluster growth figures show how important it is to continue with the necessary reforms, and they also show that probably the effects of QE and low oil prices have been overrated.
Vincenzo Scarpetta, thank you very much for joining us there from the think tank Open Europe. Great to get your views, not just on Greece, but the rest of the Eurozone's growth as a whole.